Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. It really helps me out if you like, comment, subscribe, and if you would consider purchasing from one of my sponsors in the description. Thanks a bunch.
Alright everybody, I'm going to inaugurate this new series sponsored by Roll-Tru 40-foot containers in HO scale, and it's Diorama Discovery. And I'm going to show you how I repaired one building and added it to these other buildings. And I really decided to do this because I've gotten to the point where I'm not sure what does and doesn't help people. So if I work on a project, I'm going to put it online in the hope and thought that it'll help somebody. So hang on a second and we will get this started, and we'll show you what I started with, and I'll show you what it took to get here. So let's do that. Hang on a second. Let me show you what this started out as. It started out as this chainsawed building. I got it in a big box of other buildings, and this thing was just sort of sitting there by itself. And when I looked at it from the front, it looked great. I'm like, oh, this will be really neat. It's got little window dressings and everything I need. But when you turn it around and looked at the back, you're like, oh my gosh, where did the building go? And it looked like somebody had chainsawed the back, and that includes the roof. It may not be obvious, but the back of the roof is actually kind of chainsawed too. Look at that, he cut right through the middle of the window, and I have absolutely no idea why this happened. I don't know who originally owned this. I bought it from somebody who probably bought it from somebody who probably bought it from somebody, but the chainsaw effect, yeah, that effect, I'm just not sure what was happening. It maybe had some plans for it, but now I've got to make up for the lack of any kind of instructions myself. So I dug through all the other buildings in the box, and I found this. And maybe some of you recognize this. I have no idea what these are from. I don't know if this is Walthers or Fowler or some other. I have no idea. But most of the other buildings, the doors were too small. But this building set, or at least these buildings, and maybe these are all separate also, I don't know, but they look like everything lined up really, really well. Let me show you that here. Yeah, you can see the doors look to be about the same height. It looks like everything, you know, the decorative overhangs, those all line up. So I really don't know what was going on. I don't know if these are from the same manufacturer, but they will fit together. And so I think that's what I'm going to do. And what's nice is you can see that door down there. That door is still going to be openable, even though I'm not sure why there would be a door there when there's already one in the back. But I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to combine these together. So that should work. And you know, maybe this is what he planned to do in the first place, but I don't know why he wouldn't have made them the same in the back. But what I need to do is I need to match these windows and doors as closely as I can. And then I will attach this building directly to the side, and in doing so, I'll have that one window and that door exposed. And I guess this could be a parking area or a trash area or something like that. I think this will work fairly well. So I'll figure I'll make this union pretty permanent. I'll use quick setting epoxy that should be more than strong enough to combine these things on a near forever basis. I don't want to have to wait all night for these things to line up, so let's just go ahead and slather the JB weld onto here. I can say goodbye to some of these windows, and I pieced it together. I don't need to sand any of that down or anything like that. It'll actually go together pretty well all on its own. And so the hard part is just to make sure that it'll line up here so that when I place it on a flat surface, you know, they won't rock and roll around. And I think I've done that, so I'll go ahead and just clip these together. And yeah, I think that'll look pretty good next to each other. All right, so first thing we need to do, the major construction, is the back wall. And when I measured it, here's what I got. And I had to decide, was the wall going to overlap the outer walls? And if I wanted to do that, I had to make it 199.5 millimeters. But what I decided to do is that I wanted to go ahead and leave some space for some slop, because I didn't know how this was going to all go together, so I settled on 195.5. Then I got to get around that white building's window. I guess I could have sanded it down, but I didn't want to worry about that. So what I'll do is the window is 58.20 millimeters off the ground, but there's like kind of a decorative ledge out there that I have to take into account. So the wood I'm going to cut is going to protrude into that window, and that way, I guess I really didn't need to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. So the window starts at 58.2 millimeters above, it's 29.59 millimeters high, and that decorative ledge starts 19.96 millimeters above the bottom of the window, and it is 2.15 millimeters high. So I'll take that into account. I'm going to use a laser cutter to make this wall because I think laser cutting is going to give me the best detail, particularly with the bricks. So what I need to do is I created the wall already with the dimensions stated previously. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure up to the bottom of that window. And I know nothing about CAD, nothing. If you've seen a commercial for CAD, you know more about CAD than I do. So what I do is I basically use a lot of squares to measure off the distances that I need. And that way I know I've got the exact height and width, etc. by using these, they're boxes, but they're not gonna cut. If you set a light green, hopefully you can see that. Maybe I'll change the color, but the light green indicates that it's not gonna cut. It's just there as a reference. And I've made this box, the first one, up to the height of the bottom of the window. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the rest based on that height. So this window I just drew is the height of the window, or at least it will be here in a second. Move that up. And that's all I'm going to do is I'm basically going to make it so that this wall will kind of fill in that window on the white wall next to it. And I'm using these green squares. These won't cut. The black will cut. It'll cut all the way through. And I'm using these green squares to measure exactly where everything needs to go to allow for the window recess. And here I'm building this notch. I'm continuing to build this notch. And so I'm going to measure the correct height to where that little ledge is going to be. And then I'm going to cut this out. There we go. Put it right up against. I'll cut that little, there we go. Cut that notch out, there we go. And that will go into that white building's window recess. Very cool, all right. Now what we need to do is we need to cut the windows out of this material. And by the way, I'm going to use 2 millimeter thick masonite. And masonite is a really bad material to laser cut, by the way. It's just not a good material at all. The scorching point, the burning point, and the cutting temperature are almost exactly the same. So it's easy to make a real mess. So I would not recommend using masonite. Use MDF or HDF instead. Yep. The door cutout's gonna have to be 25.34 millimeters high by 10.11 across, and that's what the other doors measure in the other buildings I've attached. But what's interesting is how we're going to do the windows. I've decided to use 5 windows because it looks about right, and the bottom of the windows on the other models is 56.57 millimeters from whatever it's resting on. But again, I'm winging this. I have no CAD experience, and literally I haven't even bothered to watch any CAD videos because I don't know why. I'd rather just get to doing it. So I'm not going to use that number. I'm going to actually use the measurement to the bottom of the windows. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I can put a bounding box there and then tell the bottom of the windows to line up with the bottom of the bounding box. And the bottom of the windows need to be 42.28 millimeters from the top in order to have that correct height from the bottom. So that's what I'm going to do. And the windows themselves are 24 by 49 by 10.87, and those decorative framing elements around the window are slightly different. They're longer on top, and the ones on top are 2.07 by 13 by 0.94, and the ones on the bottom are 12.21 millimeters wide by 1.66 millimeters high. Let's go ahead and first we will get rid of the bounding boxes that I used to make this notch to go into the window. And after we do that, we can draw the box that will allow us to basically make the bottom of the windows and the bottom of this box the the same height. So here we go. I will turn this green in a second because I don't want it cutting. I just want to use this as a measuring box. So if you look, I've put 42.28 in the box there. That's how high I'm going to make it. And I'll snap it to the edges of the wall. There we go. And what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to go ahead and draw the windows. And again, I'm going to set these to the height and the width that I calculated before, or actually I measured with my micrometer. So 10.11 by 25.43. That is the height and width of the windows in all the other buildings. And I said I wanted 5 of these because I think that'll look about right. So we're going to have to cut through the wood, so we make that black, and I'll just copy and paste 5 of these on here. And then what I will do is I will kind of, you know what, I'm just going to sort of eyeball them in terms of where I think they look best. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw another bounding box, and you can see it's green. That means it's not going to cut. It's just going to be a box from my reference. And what I will do is I will line each of these windows. And first what I'm going to do is I'm going to center this box onto the wall here. And that way I know these windows will be dead in the center also. So we'll just align that and we'll just center that up. And then what I'll do is I'll put each of the windows on each side of this bounding box here. So we'll select that. And then what I will do is I will space these evenly. And that way I know that they're all the same distance apart. So it's pretty slick how that all works. We'll go ahead and align these. Here we go. Now they're all the same height. And you know what? I guess I shouldn't have done that. Well, I will. It's okay. So here we go. Put one box, snap it to the edge of that box, and then snap the other one to the other edge. And then I will select these, and then I will do an even center distribution on them. And there we go. Come on. There we go. So now I know these are all spaced properly. And I will align them all together. And now I will group those together so that they're one object. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to align this one object of all the windows with the bottom of that bounding / measuring box that I made. If I can get this to work right, if I can, come on, there we go. There are the windows, select the box, and now I will just do an align bottom on them. And now I know the windows are going to be the perfect height from the bottom to match all the other windows. So I can go and delete these. And then what I'll do is I'll group this whole thing together and make it a group, and that way nothing will move around. All right, so that's good. That's all one big group, so now nothing will move. The windows will stay in place. Everything will stay relative to each other. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the door. Again, it'll be to the same height and width of the other doors in this model, and all I need to do is put that down and then go change the values up in the box. Sorry, I don't have to accidentally cut that off. There we go. And I will just align it somewhere that I feel looks about right. I don't think it's any big problem to put it down wherever. I mean, some of the other buildings had multiple doors, but I just want one door for mine. That's all I'm going to have. So we'll go ahead and plop this. That's good. That's good. I don't care. Looks about right to me. So I think that'll look fine. Yep. All right. So now what we have to do is we have to work on the bricks. And that is going to be a little bit of an involved process, but I want it to, as closely as possible, match the bricks from the other building. And here's what I measured for those. Each brick in the other buildings is about 0.71 millimeters by 2.13 millimeters long. So that's going to be pretty fun. And let's go ahead and figure out the best way to do that. So I will go ahead and measure off a little box, and I will use dark blue. Dark blue cuts about 0.2 millimeters into the surface of masonite. So that's what I'll do. I'll make these tiny little bricks, and it'll cut just enough into the masonite to give it depth. So let's do that. So there is one little brick. We'll zoom out, and what we'll do is we'll copy and paste this brick a bunch of times, a whole bunch of times. And this is how we'll start making a line of bricks. I don't care where they go. And again, you may be a CAD person, know what the heck you're doing, but I don't. So I'll make these so they all line up on the bottom, and then I'll do a horizontal space, and nope, they're definitely not enough bricks. So let's put in more bricks. And then we'll go through the same procedure where we line them all up together, and then we'll do a equal horizontal space, and now we can kind of see that looks a little bit more brick-like. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another bounding box that's bound for the correct width of the wall. So let's do that, and again, I'm going to turn this green because I don't want it to cut into anything. And then what I will do is I will move enough bricks into there so that I have the exact width of the bricks that I need. So there we go, we'll paste it in there, and I will have to, let's see, I will move more bricks. I will put these bricks at the edges, and that way I know I've got the correct number of bricks. I will have to go in, I gotta move this out of the way so I can select all the bricks. There we go. Now we'll do another horizontal space on them, but I bet you that's gonna really kind of ruin everything because probably we'll need more bricks. So I pasted more bricks in there. And now I'll do a horizontal space, and I should have a nice line of bricks. There we go. We can always go zoom in to see what it looks like. Does that look about right? Yeah, I think that looks about right. So now I need to group all those together, and I do a copy and paste because the bricks are offset, right, by 50% on preceding and proceeding rows. So that's what we'll do is we'll just copy that line of bricks, and we can just sort of eyeball it. I really don't care. And again, if you're a CAD person, you know what the heck you're doing better than I do. You may know how to get this exact. You don't really care if it's dead on exact. Just get it close enough because these are going to be so small that if anyone's in my, up in my grill looking at a magnifying glass at my layout, I'm probably going to kick them out anyway. So there we go. We got 2 lines of bricks. Oops, I got those offset a little bit too much. So I'm gonna have to move this line of bricks over and then reposition it so that I get the correct bricks again. And after that's done, all we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to group all these bricks together because this is one valid row of bricks, and then we are going to paste them a bunch of times and do the vertical lineup. And once we get it, we will have the kind of bricks that we need for our building. So we'll just paste. And then we will, like I said, we'll line these up vertically, evenly spaced. And that way we will have a good row of just a whole battalion of bricks. And you can see here that I bet you when I do this, I'm going to have to add more lines of bricks. I can tell those are going to be spaced way too far apart. So let's just copy and paste more bricks in there. And we will once again align vertically. There we go. So we'll do the horizontal alignment so they're all next to each other. Then we'll do the vertical spacing so that they're all even. And it's still not going to be enough bricks. It looks more like corduroy, right? So I've got to add more bricks in here. Things might look okay this way, but once you zoom in, you realize that the bricks are just not, there just aren't enough of them. Oops, the wrong way. Go in there. See, you can see there's way too much space between the rows of bricks. So we'll just take more, copy and paste them, go in here. And, this is, of course, horrifically unscientific, but that's okay. This will work. And we'll do the even vertical spacing. Come back out. Doggone it. Let's see if we go up. Looks like there's still some space that looks incorrect between the bricks. Go in here, copy more bricks, but not a ton of bricks. Paste them in there, same thing. We will plop those together, and we will do even space on them, and hopefully, doggone, why do I keep going the wrong direction? That's closer, but not perfect, right? So just keep doing this until we get the exact number of bricks that we need to make it look correct. So we'll paste in a bunch more bricks, line them up so that they're all in a nice tidy package, do a vertical even space, zoom in. That looks like a brick wall to me. That looks like a brick wall. So that will be perfect, and that's what we'll use. You'll see after I move this that there's way too many bricks for the actual building. Let me group them together so that they'll hold together. And we will bring this up. And yeah, way too many bricks, but that's okay because we'll ungroup them then. And then we can easily go and delete the bricks we don't need. So all those bricks just to make sure we got the correct spacing. But then we'll go in and select the ones that are excess off of the bottom. Oh, doggone it. Select the ones that are excess off of the bottom and delete those. There we go. But we're still not quite done yet because the windows and the doors should have a frame of bricks around them, right? The bricks don't just run straight into the windows or doors. So let's do that. So let's go ahead and just yank. Let's just slide the actual cutout of the building out from underneath the bricks. Go. Let's get rid of, let's go move that somewhere else. And what we're going to do is let's make sure, I think there's just too many lines of bricks here, so we can group those back together. I think, how many did I count? Yeah, 3 rows ought to be enough. So what I want to do is grab a row of bricks real quick because I don't want to recreate these bricks again. And I'll just ungroup them and then group these ones back together. And I will just parse the bricks out of here that I need. And it's going to follow the same procedure. So we're going to put this brick down and then we're going to paste a ton of bricks. And not a ton this time, just enough to create the vertical frame that we need around the windows and doors. So we'll just paste. I think that'll be enough. We will line them up against each other so it's one vertical column, and then we'll even space these and we'll see if that looks about right, actually, doesn't it? That looks about right in terms of the distance. So we'll go and select some more of these, and I think that will give us tall enough bricks for the frames around the windows. I think that'll work. Yep. So when we piece these down next to the window cutout, it looks like they'll fit just perfect. Yeah, that's just the number of bricks that we need. And I think we will be in very good shape there, so it's fine. We'll go and paste this, and I group these together so that they'll all hold together. And now all we need to do is group these two together. We know they're exactly the correct height for the windows, and we'll just simply paste those around the rest of the windows. And by doing this, we will carve these window frames right around the windows and the door. Oops, forgot to do that. I'll come back and do the door later. But there's a second step to this, because if we just simply cut these bricks in to frame the windows, but we don't cut that part out of our other bricks, what's going to happen is you're going to have a brick superimposed on top of a brick, and that's not what we want. So we've got to now go to the wall of bricks and actually do a difference so that we can cut out a space so that it doesn't superimpose bricks on top of bricks. So the way we do that is we create bounding boxes on top of these this column of bricks, and the reason why I pulled 2 out is so that it would be easier for me to grab onto the bounding boxes. I'll add the bricks back in later. So that's what we do. We put those bounding boxes, and then what we're going to do is we're going to group all of those bounding boxes together, overlay those bounding boxes on top of the wall of bricks, and cut out the bricks that are within the bounding boxes. You can see me grouping the bounding boxes together and then moving the bounding boxes out, and that's going to leave the bricks in place. So that's absolutely no problem. We just want the bounding boxes. And that's all we're going to use this for, is to bound this. We're basically going to just combine it with this wall of bricks, and then we're going to do a difference on it so that anything that's within these bounding boxes will disappear. So here's that. Plop those down, and I'll just move it out of the way so you can see. So you can see now the bricks have these nice little columns cut into it, and that's where the columns around the windows, and then I've got to go back and do the door here. That's where those are going to go. So that worked out perfectly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a nice little line in here that is going to give us just a little bit of an edge cut. So that's all this is going to be for, and I think it'll look really good. So there we go. I'll just put in all those bounding boxes, and then we'll combine this together. And I still forgot to put in the freaking door ones. I'll do the door ones, and then we'll go to cut. Okay, I think that turned out pretty well. Looks like the bricks from the other models. I think that'll be just fine. So, and certainly from a 3-foot distance, they won't be noticeable at all. So, and there's the little framing. And I wasn't worried about above or below because I have to glue on those little decorative elements. So, not too worried about that. I think that looks good. So great. All right, let's move on to cutting out the windows and the doors then. For the doors and for the other small pieces like the windows, I'm going to use 1mm ply basswood, and I'm going to I had all of those dimensions, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a light scoring line that is exactly the same size as the window openings and the door opening, and that way they'll be really easy to line up and center in the openings. The mustard colored line you see here is the full cut line. I don't have to use as much power for the 1mm basswood, and that's why it has a different cut through color. And I'm just gonna go through, gonna make some neat patterns here to make some windows. The maroon that you see, or mauve, or whatever that is, that's just going to cut in about 0.05 millimeters. It's gonna add a little color and texture to the windows, and we'll just copy, since the openings are all the same, they're going to be the same window. And then here's the door, again light blue because it's going to have a light score, mustard cut all the way through, and it's going to cut all the way through on the bottom. There's going to be no bottom edge to glue it in because it's the bottom. So we'll put a few windows in here, and that looks good. And they're so small, I'm not too worried about getting these perfect. Put in a little door handle here, and again the whatever color this is, this purplish color, will basically just add a fill gradient, and it'll just look a little bit different. It'll look a little bit interesting. So that's all we'll do, and then we'll send that to the laser cutter, and this is what we got out. Here's the door you just see me make, and you can see now, the door handle, that purple color, and it's just scored in there a little bit. Here is, I made a depression so that the window will sit back a little bit from the window opening, because that's kind of how it looks in the other ones. And when we put it together, it'll just have a nice subtle 3D effect. So that's all I was going for, and I'll put some glazing behind these. I think that should look pretty nice, and particularly from 3 feet or more, I think people will like this a lot. Well, at least I'll like it a lot. Most people probably won't notice. All right. We also have to fix the roof. It's really heavily warped, so I want to go ahead and straighten it out a little bit. That'll also help with the gluing. And let's see. You can see here it's warpage. It's pretty bad. And of course, this was just, I don't know, again, why. You can see that it's clearly cut through. Again, as a retired historian, part of me wonders what all this is seeing. It's not a perfectly straight edge, so I'm not too worried about it. And I'm just going to take some masonite, some of the 2mm masonite, and just glue this onto there. And that'll help straighten it out a little bit. So I'm going to have to cut through the masonite again. And I can't wait to get rid of all this masonite because it's such a difficult material to cut. So we'll put that, and it's going to fit on this nice board of masonite. And you might be wondering, how in the world do we measure
for this kind of thing. And again, I have no experience, so I just have to kind of think about this. And here's what I did. So hopefully this will just make sense. And again, if you have experience doing this, you know a better way to do this, that's great. But all I did was created 2 boxes. One that went the lengthwise maximum, and then a second one that went the vertical maximum or the depth maximum. And then I just simply traced around the corners. And that's all I had to do inside of Lightburn. And it made for a perfectly sized cut. It was no problem whatsoever. So I think that worked out pretty well. There we go. All right, so when we assembled it, we basically take this, and I wanted it to be brick colored, or at least dark brick colored. It won't be exactly the same as the rest of them, but since this is a fibrous organic material, it will take a stain. So that's all we'll do is we'll open up this wood stain. Goodness gracious, this lid's on tight. And we'll just simply rub it in there, and then we will take it off with a clean paper towel. And I'm not too worried about my technique here because I'm gonna have to weather this anyway to make it match the rest of the building. So we'll just take and we'll just rub off the excess. There we go. No problems at all. And I think that looks pretty well. And you can see that it has some depth thanks to those brick cuts. Yeah, I think that'll look pretty well. Now, another way you can do this if you're using a laser cutter is actually to stain the material first and then cut into it. I've done it that way and it looks good also. Just didn't feel the need to do that this time, but you can do it either way. And after some weathering, here's what it looks like. It's not my greatest weathering job, but it should be good enough. And I think it will match the rest of the weathering that was done by whoever owned these buildings before me. As far as the other pieces, they fit in there well, and I felt no need to paint or color them. I think they look just fine, particularly from a distance. I like their warmth, so that's the way this is going to stay. And as far as the roof, here is the piece of masonite that's cut out. And you can see again just how warped this roof is. So all I'm going to do is epoxy this down, and that'll give the roof, and it'll give it a little bit of strength just in case something falls on it, I guess. Just going to rough up the plastic a little bit so that it'll take the epoxy a little bit better. I've had really good luck with the plastics either way, but just roughing it up, I think will just make a little bit of a difference. So we'll just do that. And if you remember at the beginning, I said that I was going to cut it so that the wall sat inside, or the back wall sat inside of the side walls, and that's exactly what it's doing. But because of that, I've got some gaps that I'm going to have to cover up. So I don't think that'll be an issue whatsoever, but the gaps, yeah, I mean, they're really noticeable. I just can't leave it like that, right? I've got this one here, this corner gap. Yeah, I'll have to do something about that. Gap in the top. And then there's really no gap in the sides. That's the one I wanted to make sure the wall stayed level. So I put that in there, and so we'll just have to make up for that. And I did, and also I need something to kind of finish out the roof and give it some height. So this is one I actually pre-stained and then cut so that will go up above here. And then I also need something to kind of come down and cover up that big gap. And so what I did is I just created what's supposed to look like concrete or granite. And my Latin is pretty garbage, but I think I kind of got this right. And I've got weathered gray wood stain. Again, this is basswood, so it'll easily take this stain. And I'm not minding the grain in the wood because, you know, marble or granite or whatever this is supposed to be, even concrete, isn't going to look 100% flat. So I think staining this will be a really good idea. So same thing here. Go through and just stain that, and there we go. Get this in there. Same thing, and this little piece here at the top, that's just gonna go on the top to kind of finish out that roof. So I think this will look okay. Just kind of rub off the excess here. I think that looks granite-y or concrete-y enough. I think that'll be okay, and especially since it's the backside. I don't know how long people are going to stay looking at that. And I think, I may have had to do it again. I wouldn't have done it this way, but I think it looks okay. Maybe I would have put an advertisement, or maybe made it look brick again or something. I don't know, but it's not perfect, but it's not bad enough for me to want to change it all around. I kind of noticed post facto that those little covering strips down the side I forgot to weather them, but I'll probably just take like a marker and just a watercolor marker and just dab it in there, and that'll change it to this darker look again. So there we have it. I don't know if this helped anybody. I don't know if anyone's still watching this, but if this helped you somehow, I'm glad it did. Like I said, when I started this, I was really surprised at how many people said that they found whatever was helpful, and I never thought those things would help anybody. But I think this makes a pretty nice combination. And now I finally don't have this building with this big hole in the back, and it matches up really well. And if somebody knows where this came from, I would love to know. I have no idea who manufactured these to begin with. So until next time, take care, stay safe, happy model railroading. I'll talk to you later. Bye for now.